Welcome to Sacred Fame Podcast. My name is Kasia Rachfall and I'm your host. Let's talk about motivation today. How do you motivate yourself? I recently had a client ask the Akashic Records this very question: how do I motivate myself? And I thought the answer from the records was really, really interesting. And so I would love to share some of that with you and talk about it, because I know that I struggle with motivation sometimes, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Motivation is one of those things that sometimes seems really, really fleeting. And where do we look for it? How do we get it? Where do we find it? What does it even feel like? And so the records had a really wonderful perspective on it, and I hope you find it helpful. So let's get started. So motivation. Sometimes when we set a goal and we're really, really excited, it's almost like we have this honeymoon phase, right? Where we're like, yeah, we're going to get up every morning and we're going to do this thing and we're going to be focused. And then a few days go by or a few weeks go by, and perhaps you have found yourself falling off the wagon. And then you might even get down on yourself and be like, oh my gosh, I'm totally failing at this. I can't get my shit together. I can't seem to muster up the energy to keep going towards this goal. And of course, motivation isn't the only reason why you might fall off the wagon, but it's what we're talking about. So how do we find motivation? How do we motivate ourselves in those instances? And so the records said that motivation is not an outside source. It's not something out there, outside of us, that pulls us. It becomes an inner pull. And that's what we want. We want that inner pull. So first of all, there's a difference between something that pushes you forward and something that pulls you forward. And that's the first distinction, as they said, motivation is a pull from within, not a pull from outside of you. It's not a push from outside of you. So when we look at our life, and if you divide your life into however many slices of pie you have, so for example, if you're a parent, right, then you have your children. If you have a spouse, if you have a business or a career that you're pursuing, you have your career slice of pie, perhaps your health, perhaps your family. So we can divide our life into several different sections based on what we've got going on. And the records have said that the motivation will vary according to the slice of pie you're looking at. So there is no one thing that you will find that will motivate you the same towards goals or dreams or towards progress in any one area of your life. They're all different. And of course, that makes sense, because how you motivate yourself towards health is probably very different than how you motivate yourself in your business or in your career, or to have a wonderful relationship with your kids or your spouse. And so you're not necessarily looking for the exact same thing that you can check off a list every morning going, okay, done it. I'm motivated now and I'm going to go do the things, right? It's going to be different. And so that's such an interesting thing. It's such an interesting point, because knowing that means you can have many sources of motivation, both inside you and outside you, always remembering that it's an inner pull. So you may do something outside of you, like maybe it's reading motivational quotes. Maybe it's reading affirmations or looking at beautiful photos or taking a walk in nature that motivates you, that helps you generate that inner energy that will then move you towards the next thing. The other thing the Akashic Records said about this is that you don't necessarily have to be plugged in to a big why in order to have motivation. Of course, it's helpful to know why you started something or why you want something. But if you don't know the whole why, or if you don't have a why for every single thing, that's okay, because it's enough to have a little why. Okay, so for example, let's say you're feeling a little bit sad or angry or just kind of content or neutral, and you want to motivate yourself, you're seeking that feeling of, okay, I want to move through this. You don't have to jump and leap across some big wall in front of you. What if you only looked for 1% that would move you 1% forward? So if you're sad, what would help you be 1% less sad? Or if you're angry or sort of neutral or content, what would make you 1% feel a little bit better, right? So feel either less angry or more joyful, right? Or feel more content. So we're not looking for these huge leaps and bounds to amp us up into some crazy degree of productivity. We're only looking for little steps that we can add up together to then make progress to move that needle forward in our goal. So that takes all the pressure off, doesn't it? When you're looking for a little why in order to move your needle forward and motivate yourself from within. You don't have to have this big, huge, amazing thing. So you could look at, what brings you joy? What helps you smile? What helps you feel warm fuzzies inside? And again, it could be different every single day. Perhaps looking at pictures of beautiful art would be one day, or perhaps spending time with your pet or your children or your spouse or a loved friend, right? It could be different every day. It's the giving yourself permission to pursue those little tiny whys, those little tiny sources of joy and happiness that then help you rev that engine, that help you move those gears forward. So there's a fallacy out there that motivation is one thing that then spreads throughout our whole day or our whole life, and it keeps us going. It keeps our engine running. It's a whole bunch of little things. And giving yourself permission to be curious about what those things are, A, it takes the pressure off, and B, it means there's no more expectation for yourself to just be motivated all the time or to have like one thing outside of you that you look for. So no matter where you're at or what you want to do, what is it that gets that gear moving in the direction that you want to go? And some days it'll be more, some days it'll be less, right? Some days you'll make more progress, other days it'll just be tiny amounts of progress. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with motivation being this, not like a curve that goes up into infinity, but more of a sine or cosine wave that has its ebbs and flows, its peaks and valleys? I think that's perfectly okay. So again, what gets you moving in the direction that you want to go in the slice of life that you're working on, right? It's going to be different. And so give yourself permission to not know. I think that's one of the biggest permissions we can give ourselves with respect to anything in life, but especially this idea of motivation. Give yourself permission to not know and trade in your expectation for curiosity. Because especially in the beginning, as you're practicing creating or generating motivation from within, you might not know all the things that add to it, right? You might experiment. Try reading motivational quotes for a couple minutes. Try reading affirmations for a couple minutes. Try taking your dog for a walk or petting your cat or hanging out with your fish or whatever pet you have, if you have a pet. Try moving your body, taking some deep breaths, perhaps journaling, right? There's so many different activities. There's like a million different activities that you could try in order to see how it makes you feel. And does it make you feel even just 1% more motivated? If it does, wonderful. Add it to your list of stuff that helps you generate that feeling. If it doesn't, toss it. Don't do it again, right? So don't make this work. Don't make this a job. You don't have to make finding a source of motivation a job. Consider this. If you can't muster up that drive to go after something, there may be something underneath it. And of course, definitely ask for help if you need help understanding what that is and clearing the resistance and all of that. But get curious when you feel like you don't have motivation. get curious, give yourself permission to not know, and get really specific with yourself about which slice of life you're looking at in that moment where you feel unmotivated. And then get curious and try something that will give you just 1% more movement towards what you want. So very, interesting way of looking at motivation. I was super excited to hear the answer from my records and, for this client and really wanted to share this because I think it's a different way of looking at where motivation comes from, what it is, and how we can get more. So if you have any questions or comments, if you agree or disagree, I would love to hear from you. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the notification button so you never miss an episode. And of course, if you're listening in on whatever platform you listen in on, thank you so much. And I would love it if you could leave me a review. And I will see you on the next episode. Take care.